What up, everybody? A very special edition of the OC show. It's going to be real short, real sweet to the point, but I needed to get something off my chest and I wanted to share something with everybody that is important to me. Typically, this show is a sports show and I deal with sports topics. I'm going to take a sports thing, and kind of weave it into something else. So stay with me now. Stay with me now. I'm going to dive into this, and I'm going to be as quick as possible. I listen to several podcasts. I listen to several shows. I've been a fan of sports radio for years, back to in the early mid '90s when WDFN in Detroit started out, and it's something that I've always kind of liked, and I've always just been interested in being a sports fan, just listening to information about sports. And as the years have gone on, the different podcasts, different shows, internet, satellite radio, there's different things that you can listen to. And so there's a variety of podcasts I listen to. And I don't always love the hosts, but the content, I want to see what different people have to say about certain topics. One of the hot topics this summer, especially, has been the WNBA, and a show that I listen to a lot. Not that I'm a huge supporter of this gentleman, but I do like his show because a lot of the stuff he does say I do agree with. I happen to agree with. I'm not afraid to say Jason Whitlock and Fearless. Uh, he was talking the other day about another podcast hosted by someone that I'll name later. The name has something to do with my topic today. And he mentioned the topic of Caitlin Clark and how after the Olympic break, the Indiana Fever, the team that Caitlin Clark plays for, won 2 games in a row, and they're doing real well, and they seem to have benefited from the Olympic break that just happened. And so on this podcast, the lady who I'm not going to name quite yet, if some of you already know who the name is, I'm not going to name her right yet. She gave praise to the coaching staff and several of the other players, not Caitlin Clark. Stephen A. Smith had something to say about this, saying that this particular podcast host was wrong for not mentioning Caitlin Clark. But Jason Whitlock had the opposite stance, like he often does, and was saying that this person was justified in not mentioning Caitlin Clark for his reasons. I'm not going to get into the reasons why he said this person was justified for not mentioning Caitlin Clark. He has his opinion, and it's his opinion. Stephen A. Smith and others, and I tend to be on the side of Stephen A. Smith on this one, that Caitlin Clark's a big reason that team won those 2 games in a row, and as a big part of that team, and if they're going to make it to the playoffs or not. I'll get my sister-in-law on here one day, and we'll talk about WNBA, Caitlin Clark, all sorts of things. But this person, despite the success that the Indiana Fever had, just did not mention Caitlin Clark, which is ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. Yes, I mentioned Aaliyah Boston and the other folks that played well, but to just totally on purpose not mention her was crazy. But when I listen to these shows, I look for credible information and credible sources. You lose credibility when you do this. Jason Whitlock was talking about Sheryl Swoopes and her podcast and her opinion. Sheryl Swoopes is the person who made the comments about the Indiana Fever being improved and benefiting from the Olympic break. A big pet peeve of mine, and something that you can lose total credibility with me, is when you say someone's name wrong. He refers to her as Sheryl Swoopes. Sheryl Swoopes is not. I've mentioned Sheryl Swoopes in a prior podcast because I met her briefly when I was in college. Her team was playing the then Detroit Shock. She was with the Houston Comets, and she came into the store that I was working at, signed an autograph for me, and actually offered me tickets to the game, and I had to decline because I had to work. But Sheryl Swoopes is one of the probably a top 5 greatest women's basketball players of all time. She knows basketball. She's a great basketball player. If you know basketball, you know the name Sheryl Swoopes. Jason Whitlock continually called her Sheryl Swoopes. Sheryl Swoopes. And to make matters worse, he played a clip from another show with with an opposite opinion that said Sheryl Swoopes. The woman's name is Sheryl Swoopes. You automatically lose credibility when you don't say someone's name correctly that is as famous as that in the basketball world, and when you just flat out ignore that the name has been said correctly in front of you, you just continue to say it wrong. At that point, you're either just choosing to be ignorant or you're trolling. And I have respect for Jason Whitlock I have a lot of respect for Jason Whitlock because he stands his ground. He stands his ground, and his opinions are his opinions, and that's why I respect him. A lot of people don't like him. I respect him, but I can't respect your take if you say the name of someone wrong, especially when this person is famous as they are. Now, there are a lot of difficult names out there. Giannis Antetokounmpo, difficult name. Nikola Jokic, former running back for the Michigan Wolverines, Tim Biakabatuka. But it's your job, if you're in this profession, and I'm not getting paid for this, hopefully one day, but I'm not getting paid for this. But if it's your job to talk about people, at least say their name right, because you lose credibility with your audience and other people that are listening to you. I say that to say this. It's 2024. And when I look through the calendar, 2020, 2024, 2028, when I immediately see those, the first thing I think, it's a leap year. 29th of February coming, loading up. The second thing that I think of is that it's an Olympic year. I love the Summer Olympics. So every 4 years, calendar, so 2028, next Summer Olympics. But a lot of you, know that it's an election year. This is the point I want to get across, and I'm going to make it very clear. Just like with Jason Whitlock saying Sheryl Swoopes' name wrong, she's not Sheryl Swoopes. Her name is Sheryl Swoopes. And it's been said thousands of times over media. For all of you out there who continue to say Kamala Harris's name wrong, she's the vice president, Kamala Harris. I'm not a political person. I'm not telling you to vote for this one or that one. I am not here to endorse any candidate. It's not Kamala. It's not Kamal. It's not all these things that have been made up. Kamala Harris. I listen to a lot of sports, but being that it's election year, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I'm not sure who I'm going to vote for. I'm not sure. It's my business. I'm not sure I'm going to vote for. And a lot of you are going to take that as, you're going to go this way, you're going to go that way. You don't know where I'm going. You have no idea who I'm going to vote for. But I will say this. I'm going to respect each and every one of these people, whether I agree or disagree with them. And for you folks that disagree with Kamala Harris, it's ridiculous that you just choose to say the name wrong. And I listen to these political podcasts from time to time, and Kamala, they don't. I see. I'm saying it correctly because I'm training myself to say it correctly. I've trained myself to say it correctly. It's not that hard. It's not Antetokounmpo. It's not Nikola Jokic. It's not Biakabatuka. Kamala. Say it with me, everybody. Kamala. Whether you like her or not, that's her name. Respect the human being and say her name correctly. Not Kamala. Not Kamala. Kamala's the biggest one. Her name is not Kamala Harris. Kamala. And I'm not just getting on, don't think that it's just people on one side of the coin that are saying it wrong. Everybody says it wrong. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, people say it wrong all the time. And if I'm trying to gather information about candidate A, candidate B, to make my informed decision, you automatically lose credibility with me if you can't say that woman's name correctly. Not only is it a disgrace that you can't say her name correctly, she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Learn her name. Kamala. Whether you like her or not, whether you're for her or against her, whether you're with her or you're not with her, say her name right. Kamala. You want someone to have respect on an opinion you have about Vice President Kamala Harris? then say her name right. Because I automatically I'm going to dismiss you that you're ignorant and you don't know what you're talking about because you can't even say her name right. Do better, people. Do better.